Hello, hi, a very happy good evening. So this is Krishna Ma'am and we've been talking about the story of life on earth, and that's biology. So I hope you guys are doing good. So please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. So it's my pleasure interacting with you all. So today we are in the next highlight series. So today we're going to talk about respiratory volumes and capacities, the most tricky topic in this entire chapter of breathing and exchange of gas, which otherwise is pretty easy, right? So I hope you benefited a lot from the yesterday's session, so wherein we gave a quick recap of digestion. So I spoke about the ducts involved in digestion as well as the enzymes involved in digestion. So today it's our topic, it's our turn to talk about the respiratory volumes and capacities, right? So shall we move forward? Okay, so before we move forward, it's going to be a very short session because we have only hardly 9 or 8 definitions, I guess. So it's all going to end within that. So it's going to be a very short session, but we'll make sure we'll solve some questions so that which can actually deepen our understanding about the same concept. Fine. So here we go. So volume and capacity. So before we talk about respiratory volumes and capacities, what is tidal volume, what is inspiratory reserve volume, what is expiratory reserve volume, what is functional residual capacity, what is total lung capacity. So before we talk about all this, so what is the basic or the prime difference between volume and capacity? Is there a link between these two? And the answer is yes. So there should not be any doubt between volume and capacity when you're talking. So this is something very basic and I want you to understand this basic concept. So you should understand what is volume, what is capacity, and what is the relationship between these two. Okay, so here we go. So let's say we have borrowed a beaker from your chemistry lab. So I guess my beaker is a bit tilted, please don't mind it. So I say this beaker has markings like this. So if you have seen a beaker carefully in your chemistry lab, it has markings like this. So it says 10, 20, 30 and 40. For example, these are the markings or graduations on your beaker. Suppose I have water filled in the beaker till this. So what is the volume of water in the beaker? The volume of water in the beaker is 15 ml if you see carefully. But what is the capacity of the beaker? That is, what is the maximum amount it can hold? So what is the maximum amount it can hold? 40 ml. Right? So now you get the difference between volume and capacity. So volume is clear cut, the volume of water that is present. When I say capacity, the overall ability of the beaker to hold water. So how is these two related with respect to respiration? So when I say volume, that is the volume of the air you can either inhale or exhale. When I say respiratory capacity, how much your lungs can hold. That is the prime difference between these two. Yes, ma'am, a very happy good evening. Thank you so much for joining my session. So please do like, share and subscribe. Fine. So I hope you got the difference between volume and capacity right. And one more thing that you should remember is capacity is measured in terms of volume. So when I say the capacity of this beaker is 40 ml, 40 ml is nothing but volume, right? So when I fill this beaker with 40 ml of water, so that is in turn my capacity. So I am measuring capacity in terms of volume, right? So there are two things. So volume is the volume of air that you can breathe. So capacity is the capacity your lungs can hold so much of air or your lungs can exhale so much of air. So point number 2, always capacities are measured in terms of volume, right? So the prime difference or the definition is clear between volume and capacity. So now we can venture into our definitions for the evening, that is your respiratory volumes and respiratory capacities. So here we go. When you talk about volume, so we are having 4 definitions. Okay, so we start with tidal volume, that is TV. So before that went to phones and all, so all of us used to get glued to the TV, right? So I still remember when I was a kid, so after school, the first thing that all of us get excited about is watching TV. So remember, it all started with the TV. So the first thing is tidal volume, which is abbreviated as TV. Followed by, you have the inspiratory reserve volume, that is IRV, and expiratory reserve volume, and the fourth one is RV, that is residual volume. So we have 4 definitions of volume, and we are going to see what is each one of them. See, for you to understand each one of them, I might use my own sentences to make you understand. But when you talk about definitions, you have to remember them as such as it is in your textbook. I'm not asking you to memorize, at least you should know where inspiration comes and where expiration comes. Because when you see the questions that I have, you will make sure, yes, ma'am was right indeed. Okay? So let's see how. Tidal volume, that is TV. Right? So it's the volume of air inspired or expired during a normal respiration. So right now I am talking to you, right now you are listening to my lecture, so we both are interacting, so we both are consciously involved in a particular task. But it does not mean that your body and my body forgets to breathe. So that is an involuntary action that is happening even though I am talking, even though I am writing notes, even though I am watching something else, even though I am cooking, even though I am eating, I am breathing, right? My heart beats. So these are involuntary actions done by the smooth muscles, which is controlled by the endocrine and the neural system. So right now you're also breathing, I am also breathing. So this normal breathing is your tidal volume, that is TV, right? So the volume of air that I inhale, that I exhale in one single round of respiration is my tidal volume. So at a time, you can take in 500 ml of air and you can give out or exhale 500 ml of air. So like this, for a minute, you in a way consume 6,000 to 8,000 ml of air. Clear? That is your tidal volume. So right now you're breathing. So you're breathing. So for one round, so inhale and exhale is one round. So for that, you can take in 500 ml of air, you can give out 500 ml of air. So together you take 6,000 to 8,000 ml of air. That is your tidal volume, that is TV. Fine. So next you have inspiratory reserve volume, that is IRV. Okay. So what is reserve? Reserve is to store something that is extra. So if you remember the chapter, Cell the Unit of Life, you have what is called as inclusion bodies scattered in the cytoplasm of a prokaryotic cell. So what is that inclusion body? It is a reserve for food molecules stored by the prokaryotic organism. So anything that is extra, you tend to store it properly. For example, imagine your mom buying wheat for say for 10 kilos of wheat. Right? So she cannot just keep that in the middle of the house and say, this is how we store it. No, she has a proper storage place in the kitchen. So you have a storeroom where you can keep all the stock for cooking, etc. Right? So similarly, anything that is extra is your reserve. Fine. So when I say inspiratory reserve volume, I guess with the typical heading, it is understood. So you can inhale anything that is extra. You can inhale extra. Typically, that is what it means. Additional volume of air inspired by forcible inspiration. Sometimes you have this habit, no? So in the name of yoga, you do this. You take in more air. So that's an action of people, you pretending to do yoga, right? So though it is not actually done so. So yeah, so when sometimes you can inhale extra because probably when you're trekking, so you are in need of oxygen. Your body tries to scavenge oxygen. So you try to inhale extra and your lung gives in. Okay, so that is your inspiratory reserve volume, which is abbreviated as IRV. The volume that you can breathe extra is 2500 to 3000 ml. So that is 2500 ml to 3000 ml you can breathe extra. So everything has two sides. If you can breathe in extra, you can also exhale extra. Sometimes you exhale, so you take a deep breath. How many times you do that in a day? So probably a lot of times, right? So you can exhale extra as well. So normally right now I am exhaling that you and I do not know. But sometimes wantedly I do. You exhale extra, right? So in certain situations you tend to do that and that is also possible. So that is your expiratory reserve volume, that is ERV. The additional volume of air that is expired by forcible expiration, right? So here the value is 1000 to 1100 ml. So what is the tidal volume? What is the value? 500 ml is what you can do. So for per minute, you do that 6000 to 8000 ml, right? And inspiratory reserve volume is 2500 to 3000 ml. You can take in extra. Always we have this habit, no? You can take extra, but you can give less. That happens with our siblings. So expiratory is less, 1000 to 1100 ml. Hi Rose, I hope you're doing good. So are you going to give NEET in this year, or are you going to give NEET in the next year? Thank you for joining me every day for my session. So please do like, share, and subscribe. All right. So these are the three definitions with respect to your volume. So what are they? Tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume, expiratory reserve volume. Right. So we have done with three things. The next one is residual volume. This is very, very simple to understand. So probably you would have seen your mother empty the contents of an oil from an oil cover or an oil can, right? So how much ever you try to empty the contents into your oil jar or something, some amount of oil always remains inside the packet or the can, right? So it happens with your coconut oil also. If you understand, it happens with any type of oil, right? So even if you tend to breathe out the extra amount of air, even if you try to exhale extra, or during a normal expiration also, if you try to exhale extra, some amount always remains inside your lungs. If all the air from your alveoli comes out, there's a possibility that it might burst. Thus, to reduce the possibility, minimal amount of air is always present, that is your residual volume. So I inhale 500 ml, I exhale 500 ml, so the net is 0, it cannot happen so. There's some amount of volume that is always left within your lungs, and that is your residual volume. So look into the statement, the volume of air remaining in the lungs even after forcible expiration, even after your expiratory reserve volume, you tend to take in a heavy breath. You exhale everything, even then some amount of air is left inside my lungs, and that is my residual volume. Fine. So the volume is 1100 to 1200 ml. So if you see, the value of your residual volume and the value of your expiratory reserve volume are almost nearby, right? So 1000 to 1100 ml you can exhale voluntarily, but how much of residual volume can be left? 1100 to 1200 ml. So we'll quickly write down all the values so that I can give you or show you the difference between all of them. So first of all, we read tidal volume. So usually tidal volume is only 500. This is the least. You don't consider 6000 to 8000 value as such, okay? So now talking about inspiratory reserve volume. This, wherein you can inhale extra. So then you have expiratory reserve volume. Right? So you have something called as residual volume. The residual volume can be even 1500 ml. Okay? Right. Now we go into what is capacities. If you see, all the capacities will be measured in terms of volume. Inspiratory capacity. How much volume of air can be inspired? How much your lungs can accommodate inhalation? So your lungs should be able to accommodate tidal volume, which is your normal breathing, plus how much ever extra you breathe, that is inspiratory reserve volume, that is your inspiratory capacity. Is it really tough to understand? Yes? So the total volume of air a person can inspire after a normal expiration. So by the natural cycle, when I exhale, I tend to inhale. So how much ever I can inhale, how much ever my lungs can accommodate, that is my inspiratory capacity. So this is my tidal volume plus my inspiratory reserve volume. Fine. Next is expiratory capacity, how much my lungs can accommodate exhalation. So that is tidal volume plus expiratory reserve volume, right? The total volume of air a person can expire after a normal inspiration. So please, when you are studying the definition, you can expire after normal inspiration. So try to get the statements right. So this is tidal volume plus ERV. So in terms of capacities, we are not comparing the volume. Okay? Yes? Fine. So functional residual capacity, FRC, right? So volume of air that will remain in the lungs after normal expiration. So you know what is residual capacity? What is what is residual volume? So how much residual volume your lungs can hold, that is your functional residual capacity. After tidal volume, some amount of residual volume remains. After expiratory reserve volume, some amount of residual volume remains. So these two make up the residual capacity, functional residual capacity. So that is ERV plus RV. So directly they have taken residual volume. So residual volume is the volume remaining in your lungs. Plus this happens during the tidal volume. Plus how much ever extra you exhale. So that is also considered. Vital capacity. The term vital means important, right? So vital capacity, the most important capacity of the lungs. For example, when I say a house, the minimum things the house should have is a kitchen, is a bedroom, is a living room and a washroom, right? The basic thing. So irrespective of whether it's a luxury house or the simplest hut, it does not matter. So these are the basic necessities. So similarly, even if the lungs is not very functional, it has to have this vital capacity, it has to accommodate this, right? So that is, it has to accommodate tidal volume, inspiratory reserve volume in case when I am climbing up, expiratory reserve volume in case of athletes, right? When they are running very fast, they tell to exhale, right? So this is the vital, the most important capacity of the lungs. But how much is the total lung capacity? For example, a normal house should have a kitchen, bedroom, a living room and a washroom. But generally, a house can be big also. It can have a compound wall, it can have a garden, etc. So the total capacity with which God has built your lungs is to accommodate residual volume, ERV, tidal volume, IRV as well, right? So that is what is given here. So quickly, we started off with inspiratory capacity, which is tidal volume plus your IRV. So expiratory capacity, tidal volume plus your ERV. So functional residual capacity, so it's your residual volume plus expiratory reserve volume. So vital capacity is TV plus IRV plus ERV. So total lung capacity is your vital capacity plus your residual volume. So all this plus your residual volume gives your total lung capacity. So this is how you tend to remember. Fine. So are your definitions tough? Yes. So this is a graph and you use a spirometer to measure all this. So I hope it is clear. Yes, everyone. So we'll solve some questions to see how much we have understood. Approximate volume of air a healthy man can inspire or expire per minute is. So I guess the question is pretty direct. They are asking about the total tidal volume. So that is 6,000 to 8,000 ml, right? So this is option C. So question 2. Tidal volume plus expiratory reserve volume of an athlete is 500 ml and 1000 ml respectively. So what will be his expiratory capacity if the residual volume is 1200 ml? So it's very easy. So this is just to confuse you. So expiratory capacity is tidal volume plus expiratory reserve volume, right? So just do the calculation. It is 500 plus 1000. So the answer should be 1500 ml, right? So question 3, additional volume of air a person can inspire, this is separate, and expire by forcible inspiration and expiration respectively. So how much a person can forcibly inspire during an inspiration is IRV. How much a person can forcibly expire is ERV. After forcible inspiration, the amount of air that can be breathed out by maximum forced expiration is equal to, after forceful inspiration, that is you are taking in more air, right? The amount of air that can be breathed out by maximum forced expiration. So this will be your vital capacity. Fine. So one last question, what is your total lung capacity? The total volume of air accommodation in lungs at the end of forced inspiration, or all of these, or this, or this. So all of the above will be the right answer, right? Okay. So with this, we are done with the most tricky topic in this chapter, that is respiratory capacities and volumes. So tomorrow I'll be meeting at 5:30 p.m. So talk about or to highlight what is cardiac cycle. So please do join me for the cardiac cycle, wherein I'll be briefing about the structure of the heart, the 4 chambers of the heart, so the patches of the nodal tissue, and what is systole and diastole, and what is one cardiac cycle. So what are the sounds associated with the cardiac cycle? So please make sure you join me tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. for this session on cardiac cycle. So I'll take 2 more minutes of your valid time. So I would like to say, yes, CP publication has books related to NEET. So if you are a very devoted student preparing for NEET, and if you want to solve more questions, if you're hungry for more practice, so you can look into these books. So these are the books related to NEET 2022 exam. And if you find the hard copy pretty tough to manage with your finances, so you can log into Google Books and get the e-copy of these books at pretty cheap price. The prices are in double digit. I guess you can afford that, right? So I told you this, so there is NEET revision test series. You can purchase these tests. You have 25 tests if you want to manage time, if you want to practice time management. So this is very, very important, because you should know how much you understand, how quick you are, in how much time you solve physics, chemistry and bio. So in that case, if you want to purchase your test series, so you have 25 test series, you can purchase this. And if you're one of the 100 enrollments to get this NEET revision series, you get a crash course in an offer price of 499, which is otherwise 2000 rupees, that is 1999. But if you don't want the crash course, well and good, you can decline it with the support team. But please go for the revision test series. I would say it is worth going for it, right? And the last one is for the students, if you have a sibling, if you have a sister who's in class 10th and who's willing to look forward for JEE or NEET preparation. Yes, our courses start from 1st of June. So you can ask them to join them. But they have this option of availing the scholarship. To avail the scholarship, they have to give this exam CPSAT. So please download your eCareerPoint app and look into the details for further admissions, right? So I hope I have given you a well set of information today, and if you genuinely liked my way of teaching, so please do like, share and subscribe. I'll meet you tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. with cardiac cycle. So until then, this is me signing off. So stay tuned and take care. Thank you.